Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning at the back over there. Over there. Hello, hello, hello. Jake, Steve, hi. Right, so I'm going to talk this morning about the subject of how people do what they do, and a really simple little insight. And I think it's important for us for a couple of reasons. The first of which is much of the excitement in this very innovative community is around technology, what technology can do. And much of the conversation yesterday afternoon in this room was about technology. I think there's an equally, if not more important, force for change, which is what the behavioral and cognitive sciences are telling us about our map of human beings. We as market researchers and marketers are concerned, should be concerned, number one, with people. And our ideas about people are, I think, being demonstrated to be largely out of date. And so we'll explore one little thing here, which I think changes the game and sets a very clear agenda for market research innovation in the future. But first, oh yes, and if you're coming to the workshop tomorrow afternoon, and I hope you are, then you'll learn the real story of this particular map, which was told to me by my good friend Alex Batchelor, former client of mine and now COO of Brain Juicer. And it was told to him by his mother and told to her by the man who valued her map collection. There we are. Anyway, so you'll find about that tomorrow afternoon. But first, health and safety means that we have to do something. Many of you may have had less sleep than is medically recommended. Many of you may have overdosed on coffee already today. Many of you are going to spend most of this morning sitting on your behinds. So we're going to do something. And we're going to do this, and Susan and Leanne, you're going to help me lead this. It's a very simple thing. In the Hispanic world, it's La Ola. In Germany, it's Die Welle. Here in the US, I understand it's called The Wave. In the UK, though, we call it the Mexican wave, to distinguish it from all the other waves that we are part of. And so it's very simple. On a count of three, not before three, I'm going to ask you to stand up. And Susan is a marker here, and Leanne, you know how to do this too. Now, if you have some coffee in your hand, can I recommend that you put it on the table? Can you just push your chairs back ever so slightly, because I've seen the tables go too. That's quite dramatic. And whilst in the footage of the event afterwards, it looks great when we slow it down and see the black cloud of black coffee in the air and spread. It looks much less attractive afterwards when it lands on your neighbours. So if you've got some stuff, then put it on the table in front of you, push your chairs back. And on three, not before three. Susan, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, aren't you lovely? All right, now you see, it was weird. It was lovely, but weird for most of that, until somebody over here made a noise. So we're going to try it again with a noise. Susan, 1, 2, 3. That's very good, but a bit high. Gentlemen, let's try it from that end, can we? And lower, please. You can go low to high if you like, but I want low first, please. 1, 2, 3. Oh. Very good. Now, you've done your exercise for the day, and so you can indulge whatever you like outside in the coffee and pie department. If you want to make yourselves feel intellectually more rewarded, there is a study of this kind of stuff, and the leading exponent in the world is Professor Dirk Helbing. If you Google helbing.org, H-E-L-B-I-N-G, he's got an archive of crowd behavior that his team studies. And he's got a Hungarian research team who go around the world and go to soccer stadiums and film the crowd doing this stuff. So that might make you feel that wasn't just a piece of fun to start the day, but there we go. Right, so I was talking about the map that's emerging of human behavior that we need to take account of in the practice of market research and marketing. And there are a number of really interesting things. And I know John Kieran's going to be talking about some of the behavioral economics stuff in a moment. But I'm going to summarize and steal his thunder with this one chart. Behavioral economics essentially says that we are far more Kirk than we are Spock. Those of you who are not sci-fi fans, every Star Trek story just about has a struggle between the rational, considered, logical, factual Mr. Spock and the emotional, impulsive, unthinking, dangerous? Captain Kirk. We are more Kirk than we are Spock. Even though we'd like to tell ourselves, when we sit there in our meeting rooms, that we are more Spock than Kirk, we are more Kirk than Spock. Behavioral economics in one chart. Quite good. But here is the really big deal. And you may think that late 80s rom-coms are a really weird place to find an insight into behavioral economics, into how people really do what they do. But this is one of my favourite. So could you just take the sound down, please, Jake, for this one? You'll know this scene, right? In the Lower East Side, Katz's Deli, 125 years old this year, amazingly. And Billy and Meg, Harry and Sally, the plot of the movie is actually not terribly innovative. They date, they fall out, they're friends, no they're not. Can men and women be friends without sex causing problems between them? She has got that mad face on, right? I don't mean crazy, I mean she's mad. She's mad at him. And gentlemen, I'm sure you've seen that. It starts like this, but it soon gets a bit finger-pointy. Yeah, see, and Billy's going, ah. And what she's angry about is, in this conversation, is about how he treats women. And in particular, she's saying he has no real understanding of female sexuality. And she's going to tell him in a moment, so Jake, you want to just take the sound up a little? And she's going to do that thing. Bet you didn't think you were going to see this first thing in the morning.
Oh.
Now, the important thing about this scene is not what Meg's doing and not what Billy's doing and not the relationship between men and women, but the other people in this diner.
Oh, God.
So keep an eye out for how they respond
God.
to what Meg's up to.
Oh. 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 Oh, God. Oh, yeah, right there. Oh. 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 Oh, God. Oh. Yes. 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 Oh. Oh, yes. 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 Oh. Yes. 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 Oh. 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 Oh, God. Oh.
I'll have what she's having.
Okay, so a very long-winded way of making the point. Social influence, what we learn from other people rather than what they tell us to do. Social influence, social learning in particular, is the most important factor shaping human behavior. I know this not just because the literature says it, but in recent weeks, the UK government's behavioural insights team, who use behavioural economics and psychology of various sorts to develop and test policy initiatives, have published an interim report. And they've been doing this for 4 years now, quite intensively, across a whole number of different areas. And their conclusion is the most important influence on an individual's behaviour is the behaviour of other people. Not the recommendation, not what they say, but what they see other people doing. I'll have what she's having. So important, we stole it and made it the title of our last book. Now this, oh hello, I've done that wrong. Here we are. This starts really early. This is Andy Meltzoff, famous developmental psychologist, who did experiments with baby going into a maternity ward. The youngest, 42 minutes, he got a human child to do this, making faces at them, and his research assistant took photographs of the faces he made and what the child did to copy. He discovered the literature, there's quite a lot of people, cross-cultural, makes no difference, all humans are like this, and then cross-species, so other primates, our closest relatives, they're different. Human beings do this copying earlier. We do it better, So that monkey see, monkey do idea is wrong. Humans copy better than apes and monkeys. And thirdly, we go on doing it when there's no reward. If you've got any kids, you know they just copy. Little copying machines. They pick up the words that you don't want your parents and your friends to know that you use at home. And the behavior that they see around them. First from you, then from their peers, and then from TV and the rest of the world. We're social creatures with fundamentally social brains. This is why we're one of the reasons why we're really successful. And if anything else, this is the biggest insight from the science in recent years. There are some behaviors which are independent choice, and that's on the left of this slide. Some which are socially shaped. Some, in other words, which are shaped by what goes on between individuals' ears, which is where we in market research tend to look for what people do. And some which are shaped by this I'll have what she's having phenomenon, which are shaped in the space between people. Now let's see how good you are. Can you all stand up, please? We'll do a little quiz very quickly. Do you think, if you think a particular behavior is shaped by what goes on between an individual's ears, put your hand on your head. If you think it's shaped by what goes on between them and their peers, your hand on your behind, please. Independent choice, social. So the first one here is music. Is that an independent choice? The music we download, the music we listen to, the music we play, the music we pay for, and the music we steal. Is it independent choice or is it social? Yeah, if you've got your hands on your head, you can sit down, please. Great work done by Duncan Watts and Matt Salganic at Princeton. Demonstrates really clearly that music is always, despite my interest as a music geek, is always a social choice. What gets popular is popular because it's popular, not because it's any good. That's why we have charts. They allow us to see what's popular, right? It's too much choice. And we see a long-tail distribution of popularity in things like Amazon downloads and Amazon sales. In a number of these culture markets, they're called. Secondly, then, charitable donations. Is that the kind of causes we give our charitable donations to, is it independent choice or social? Independent choice or social? If you've got your hands on your head, you can sit down. Because again, it's entirely social. We give, you guys in the US are incredibly generous. But I've learned through my research director, who's got degrees from 4 different American universities, how the American education system encourages people to become, first of all, fundraisers and then alumni. And once you're an alumnus, he's alumnus for 4 universities. Poor man is hounded. No wonder he lives in the UK now. They can't get him at all. Similarly, religion. That's the number one thing and has been consistently the number one thing for 45 years that you Americans give your charitable donations to. It's because everybody you know does, and you're part of a community that does just this, and your parents have done it too. So that's the second one. Now, you may be thinking at this point, if you're still standing, that it can't all be social, right? There must be an independent one here. So we're going to look at something really simple, deodorant format. Stick, cream, roll-on, whatever. Crystal, aerosol, whatever you spray of some sort. Is that an independent choice or a social one? Independent choice or social one? Independent one. If you've got hands on your head, you can stay standing. The rest of you sit down, please, because it is an independent one. It's one of those few things where the thing actually matters. We get used to the sensation. Every year, some smart ass at Unilever or Procter & Gamble or Colgate goes, I know, I've worked it out. Aerosols, sprays, are much more profitable, about 40% more profitable than roll-ons. Therefore, why don't we get all our roll-on users to trade up to, I'll be CMO by Christmas. And of course it doesn't work, because people like the format. They like, and the format is really important. Automotive insurance. Is that independent choice or social? Independent choice? It is indeed an independent choice. So if you get hands on your behind, you can sit down. It's largely independent choice, but it's a really hard choice, right? Because there are so many options. And there's so many dimensions, and it's really hard to make a good choice for that stuff, which is why we use comparison sites to help us out. Comparison sites give a sense of expertise, but it still reduces it down. And in the end, you go, oh yeah, the one that mailed me last, or the one that's got the best deal there. But within that, it's still really hard. It's independent choice, and the patterns, again, are really clear in the data. And then finally, just before we get to the end, drinks. A drink you choose to have. Independent choice or social? Independent choice or social? If you've got your hands on your head, you can sit down. It's entirely social, even though drinks marketers insist on telling us that sampling is the thing. Let me tell you about the unique flavor profile of this product. Let me tell you about its origins. It's actually what other people are doing. And if you've worked in a bar, you know that's how to get people to drink the special, is to see this is what other people are doing, make it really visible. Finally, voting. We have, between us, gone around the world and encouraged people to take up democracy, one way or another. Is democracy, the practice of democracy voting, is it an independent choice or is it a social thing? What do you reckon? Independent choice or social thing? You, sir, have got the chance to change your mind. What do you think? You think it's independent? You can sit down. The rest of you are correct. The rest of you are correct, which is why we spend so much time and effort getting people not to see what other people are doing. In India and in Germany, you're not allowed to publish opinion polls in the last few days of an election. Because opinion polls are a great way to see what other people are doing, right? Exit polls are banned across Europe until the polls are closed. It's really hard in the US when you've got so many time zones for that to be the case, but exit polls are banned. Equally, why we have things like lapel buttons, right? Or T-shirts, or Facebook likes. And why so little of the population actually is up for grabs in any one election. Most of them vote like people around them vote. Few of them actually make their minds up. And why we have rallies. Anyway, thank you. Sit down, please. That's very good. I'm just going to do one more thing, and then we're just going to try and draw some conclusions here. So could you all stand up, please, again? I want you to find somebody nearby who is about your height. Very good. Now listen, could you turn and face that person? And if you haven't got just the one person next to you, if you're one of a three, can you put your hand up, please? You, sir, there are three ladies here. You can, there we are. There we are. One, two, anyone else on a single? There's a lady down here. Put your hand up there, madam. You can come down the front. There's a lady. Put your hand up there as well. Come and join her there. Now, I'm going to ask you to, and apologise for this if you're British. I want you to turn round and face that person and look in their eyes. And what's worse, I want you to hold each other's hands. Okay, okay. Now this is a game, a really simple game, and the objective of this game is to get your partner off the ground as many times as you can. Get your partner off the ground as many times as you can. Get your partner off the ground as many times as you can. Go! Very good, very good. Now, so, what happened there, ladies and gentlemen? What happened? There are some really good, as they say in the tech circles, WTF. And then I saw in a couple of places, you two gentlemen, fantastic bit of wrestling going on. There's some wrestling, some of you high school champs, right? And I've got to say, I did this recently in an unnamed Scandinavian country beginning with N, and I saw someone get thrown across the room. So all those stereotypes about Vikings are absolutely true. So we did a bit of wrestling, but then something happened, and it happened in different parts of the room, but within 4 seconds, 75% of you were doing this. Because you saw other people doing it, it seems like a good solution. They can't be wrong, right? Thank you very much. Sit down, please. We'll just draw this to a conclusion. And the important thing about this is that I'll have what she's having, social learning, is, after habit, the most important shorthand that we use in making decisions in the modern world. Most decisions we make are not life or death. Most of them we choose, well, that seems okay, seems like a good solution, why not? But we as market researchers are not very good at this. I'm just, what we've done, and this is in the book I'll Have What She's Having with my friends Professor Bentley and Professor O'Brien, we've created a map based on data patterns that you see, allow you to plot this stuff. And if you want to talk to me more about this, we'll do this offline later. But essentially, there's only one part of our map that has, for which market research, as traditionally practiced, asking people about themselves is appropriate. And that's the kind of choice style where people are choosing independently of each other, considering the options properly. It's a considered choice. We're not very good at independent choice when it's guesswork, and we're really not very good at the right-hand side of this, social choice. We're really not good at what I call the space between people. And that, I think, is the really exciting piece. And this is an agenda that I would commend to you. There are people doing great stuff. There are people like Fiona from Mesh doing fantastic stuff, Stephen as well. The Brain Juicer guys I know are doing some great stuff in this area too. 3 simple questions that we should pursue, I think. How are people connected to each other? How can they see each other? If we did that jumping game when you were all blindfold, it wouldn't spread so quickly because you couldn't see each other. What's the line of sight that people have to? What's the network structure that people live in? That's the first kind of issue we need to explore. What's actually happening in the space between us? And this calls for things like ethnographic understanding, but it also calls for some understanding of cultural phenomena. And this is where perhaps semiotics and that cultural studies, anthropology starts to play a really big role in understanding stuff. Excuse me. And finally, how do things spread? Copying each other is the most, and social diffusion therefore as a result, is the most important way in which things spread through populations. If you're a marketer, that's bingo. Get the behavior, get the idea, get the message and spread through a population through social means. We need to understand that stuff better. At the moment we've got very rough and ready ideas about that. There are influentials is one idea. It's quite dubious as it happens as far as the science is concerned, but we need to get better at that. And we need to focus much, much more, and this is, I think, not just a criticism of the industry, but I think the real opportunity that we've all got is to dig around in this space between people. It's so important. The number one means by which people, the one factor that shapes people's individual behavior is the behavior of others. The space between people is where we should be digging as a community. Thank you very much.